Incredibly intense cannabis experience. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from MeltingGrass off Earwood. When this happened, 2018. The drugs used, cannabis and nicotine, at a dose of over a gram of cannabis, the route of administration, smoked, gender, male, weight, 120 pounds, age, 17, prior experience, none other than smoking weed daily for 4 months at the time. The set, very calm, and the setting, he notes, at a friend's house. I go there often, and it was very comfortable. So here we are with a cannabis trip-like experience. I'm pretty sure someone had requested we cover a strong cannabis experience, which this experience clearly demonstrates how far one can actually go with just smoking a lot of bud with a low tolerance and limited experience. This report shows themes of anxiety, depersonalization, and more, which we'll go into at the end, break down, and compare with past experiences. And with the nicotine, it seems to have played a slight role, but the cannabis seemed to play the biggest factor. So I'm sure there's a good amount of you who are interested in hearing a story like this, so without further ado, let's waste no more time and jump right into this. Important information. This was around the time I started using my vape, and I wasn't very used to nicotine. I was still getting rather sick from using it and would buzz after most hits. Weed has also been a very intense drug for me, much more than anyone I know. I also have a mild fear of puking. It used to be bad when I was a child. The fear came back after starting to smoke weed. It was a Saturday morning, and I had been using my vape very heavily, to the point of feeling really sick. My friend had invited me over to smoke. I accepted and headed that way, and once I got there, I was immediately handed a bong. Being cocky and thinking my tolerance was too high to be bothered by the experience, I smoked about a gram in about 5 minutes. I then started feeling very weird, unlike any experience I've ever had in my past. I started to feel like I didn't know who my friend was, or even who I was. This is a feeling I've had again after doing LSD a couple months later. I decided to step outside into his backyard because I started feeling very nauseous. When I stepped outside, I immediately knew that I was in for a really tense experience. I was told in my own head, I am my name, and I have a fear of puking. After hearing that, I was blasted off into this hell of a trip. Every surface with contrasting colors, and even the grass in the shadows, pulsated. When I closed my eyes, I could see a rectangle with rotating circles at each corner and steep triangles at each middle point of the rectangle sides. The image was pulsating and was a mix of yellow, white, red, and blue. When my eyes were open, nothing looked familiar. Like I had never been there before, and my head was racing with thoughts. It started off how it usually does, with my internal voice just rambling, but more voices were added as the high went on. I had no control over the other voices. Some were funny, and some were evil. I remember one in particular. I visualized him as the purple worm sitting in a UFO with the voice of King Candy from Wreck-It Ralph, singing about me and how awful and weak I am. I went in a cycle of losing my mind to all these voices, then having my own internal voice tell them to all shut up, only to start losing control again. During the whole experience, I heard very computery noises inside my head at random times. I couldn't speak with anyone and had constant music in my head on top of all the voices. It was complete sensory overload. At the peak of the experience, I started feeling very sick and my mouth was dripping with spit. I was gonna throw up and face my fears. I leaned over on a pillar of his barn and hunched over. I heard a very dramatic electric guitar in my head, and as the feeling of my stomach spinning got more intense, the guitar got deeper and deeper until I was at peak nausea. I sat there, spit dripping out of my mouth, feeling awful. Then out of nowhere, the nausea went away. The guitar got higher pitch until finally disappearing. As the high came off, each voice in opposite order that they came in slowly faded out until I was alone in my head once again. This experience was about 3 hours long, and a lot of the finer details have slipped my mind. To this day, this was the most stressful experience of my life. I'm writing this report in hopes that someone can relate, as I cannot find anything similar online. After what happened, I felt extremely humbled and will never approach any substance with the cockiness I had right before smoking. This was a good account of how strong cannabis can be for some people. Often these days, cannabis can be overlooked as just some common recreational drug, something for everyone to smoke on and just get high. At least this can happen in some groups, especially when you get more adjusted to the experience. On the individual level, though, it's going to be different for everyone. Often cannabis is regarded as having quasi-psychedelic effects. With a tolerance, though, this is going to be much less apparent. But especially for new smokers, it's likely for them to have an influx of thoughts at the very least. Things in general may appear more novel and childlike. I feel like this is what happens at the very least for most people. Now for others, they may be more prone to go beyond this. I hear about it more often with edibles, which comes as no surprise since that is one of the most potent ways to consume cannabis. But it definitely isn't limited to that, and it can be found through smoking, especially if you're a newbie and smoke over a gram to the face. You're pretty much bound to end up in a daze of just being fried. Personally for me, specifically when I was newer, it would be likely for me to have a pool of thoughts. At points, this could influence some anxiety, but in a way, they were quasi-psychedelic. For example, it influenced me to look over various aspects of my life. I would say I did experience some slight ego loss, and not having anything psychedelic before just made me much more prone to that, I feel. Beyond that, I would consistently get closed-eye visuals. I would experience a variety of different manifestations, one after another. The thing is with bud, though, it was much more sought out for me than forced upon. Again, each person will experience this differently. Some aren't going to have any negative effects at all. But like I said, cannabis today can be undermined, and wrote off is not that strong. And if you already have symptoms of anxiety and whatnot, these could be further brought out. But here's where I want to bring up another report to compare. The report is Depersonalization Marijuana Story by Bryce. The title explains it well already, but specifically in his report, Bryce experienced more anxiety, panic, and racing thoughts as compared to visuals and auditory hallucinations. While his vision was still affected, it was to no degree to MeltingGrass's experience. But Bryce also would experience feelings of being very uncomfortable around his friends and just feeling as if things were too surreal, causing these panic attacks to happen. And unlike MeltingGrass's experience, which only seemed to last 3 hours, the time one is typically high off of cannabis, Bryce would carry these feelings into the next day, wanting to see a doctor about it. He had panic attacks for about a week, and after 2 weeks, things in general still didn't feel right for him, that things still felt too surreal. But both of these are very strong experiences, and it really shows how well cannabis can differ in ways across people. So we're going to end it there today. If you want to see more on cannabis or any substance at that, let me know in the comments below and we'll do it. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow the socials, share the video. It's been Someone That's Known, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.